as you move. Let's move on to diagnostics. I've taken 27 minutes already. President Sir, how much more time do I have?
No problem.
You know, I'm a teacher, so I can teach for 2 hours, but I will not like to bother you. I'll take another 15-20 minutes perhaps. TB diagnosis, as I said, there has been no diagnostics after the last one was discovered by Robert Koch, after whom the prestigious institute, Robert Koch Institute, has been named. Robert Koch was a genius. He should have been given at least 3 or 4 Nobel Prizes for the kind of work he did. He got only 1 Nobel Prize. But he, like all genius, he was also very eccentric. He wanted his salary to be equivalent to the total budget of the institute. And the German government at that time said, okay, we'll give you because you're such a genius person. So he remained the only person in history whose salary was equivalent to the total budget of the entire institute. He died there. He said, I want to be buried here. In Robert Koch Institute, his ashes are kept there. His Nobel medal is kept there. His museum is there. Robert Koch discovered not only the bacillus, he also discovered the antigen that is used even till today to diagnose TB, 125 years ago, or even more. No new test against TB. And the result is we have a lot of false positives. And more so when we are vaccinated with BCG. In India, almost every child is vaccinated with BCG. And BCG is a kind of relative of TB but doesn't cause disease. If I have a BCG vaccination in my body, there some antigens will be shared. So when I do a skin test, tuberculin skin test, chances are that it will show positive because I will also see let's say a scar here, and that scar is because of the TB or because of BCG, we don't know. And that's the reason why if an Indian goes to states like California in the US, the child is immediately tested for TB and he is found that he has a tuberculin scar which is close to or equal to the TB scar. And the poor child is immediately put on anti-tubercular treatment as a preventive measure. He is being subjected to rifampicin and one more drug, 2 drugs for 3 months. He has no TB, but because he had taken BCG, the fault is because we don't have a new test for TB. Nothing that can very categorically say that it can detect TB and will not be able to detect as a false positive. That is the problem. So TB diagnosis remains a challenge. We don't have early detection. We don't have detection in immunocompromised population. Early detection, if it is done, you can be given the drug for a very short time, 3 months perhaps. But otherwise, by the time you are detected, the bacterial load is so high, you need to take the drug for a longer period. Immunocompromised population, if I can detect, much easier to treat. Latent TB, which means the TB is in my system, not causing any disease. There's no way to detect that. Extrapulmonary TB is another major problem. Today, we are now working with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences to focus only on extrapulmonary TB as a special case. And this is the TB that's very difficult to detect and very difficult to treat. It literally plays hide and seek. With pulmonary, chest X-ray kar lijiye, lesions milega, patches milega, you can know, you do the sputum positivity, you do the culture. Extrapulmonary, it could be in the brain, it could be in the cardiac tissues, it could be in the bone marrow, it could be anywhere other than it could be the blood. And imagine all of these are circulatory systems. And as a consequence, treatment would be very, very difficult. So can we look at new markers? And we are working with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, this Department of Medicine, with Dr. S.K. Sharma, to look at extrapulmonary TB. Childhood tuberculosis, another problem, which is coming in a big way in India. And also, again, all of these problems are mostly affecting people who are in the lower income bracket. And because of TB, you lose very active economic times. When you can really be a breadwinner. That period is lost because you're down with TB, you can't work, you're fatigued, you are low in your energy. So then you also not only suffer from the disease, you also suffer from lack of getting a proper employment. And that's where TB hits both ways, physiologically as well as economically. The disease, as I said, there's no new drug. Last drug was developed 50 years ago. No new drug. Compared to other antibiotic treatment, TB drug regime is very long, 6 months to 9 months. At times it could be even 1 year or even more than a year. I know of a patient who is being treated for TB for almost now 13th month is going on. And he's doing very well, but then he's being treated for TB even that long. Standard TB treatment takes 4 drugs, which you have to take it for 6 to 9 months. And MDR treatment, it could be 2 years. And if you are XDR, you have to go to wherever you want, Ajmer Sharif bhi jaiye or Balaji temple bhi jaiye, and also take the drug and hope that God Almighty will also listen to you. And non-compliance by patients is as the symptoms improve or disappear is a major problem. I told you in those cases where people had been earlier treated for TB, the drug resistance is as high as 50% in Russia. Why? Because they were treated and they thought they have recovered. They did show signs of recovery, but they have not fully recovered and they withdrew the treatment. The bacteria has learned where my weaknesses are, and it tried to mutate those weaknesses in the gene so that those weaknesses are covered, and it becomes stronger and it becomes drug resistance. So that's another problem. So are we really going to a pre-antibiotic era like total DR, drug resistance, where there is no treatment? And if you look at it, the global drug profile, discovery stage, large number of drugs. In preclinical development, numbers have reduced. And currently, if you look at it today, in clinical development, there are these drugs. And in phase 3 clinical trial, there are these drugs, of which 2 of them, that is Delamine and Bedaquiline, this and this, have been currently approved by the WHO, even though it has not gone through a full phase 3. Why? Because people are dying. If you wait for another complete test, then it will take another 3-4 years more. Fortunately, the government of India has allowed this drug to be not to be in the market. If it is in the market, it will be misused. So it's strictly under RNTCP program. I think it will be introduced very soon. The DG informed me that yes, they have already approved it. So it will now be introduced under the RNTCP program. Only in cases where there is no other drug available. And also not in the open market. Today, in India, I can go to the chemist, pharmacist, and ask him to give me any drug. Without a prescription, he'll give it to me. We can get one of these life-saving drugs as an OT, over-the-counter drugs. That's dangerous. And that's the reason why we have to worry about it. We have another molecule that we have developed now, which is currently undergoing testing for TB, and that's based on the work that we carried out while at the Hyderabad University and also at the CDFD and ILS. And this is based on a protein which is exclusive, an enzyme which is exclusive to TB. And we do hope that if this drug really passes the clinical stages, then this would be non-toxic, like many other drugs which are toxic and at the same time non-toxic. Last regime, vaccines. There's no new vaccine after BCG. BCG itself was discovered by Robert Koch. Not only he worked on TB, he worked on many other. The anthrax was his discovery. Many other bacteria, many other diseases were his discovery. BCG vaccine is very variable effectiveness. The worst part is it protects only up to 10 to 13 years of age. It doesn't protect adults at all. We cannot take BCG injection and get protected. So which means somewhere the line, the memory is very poor. Memory to a vaccine is very poor. We take vaccinia virus. All of us have been vaccinated once in our lifetime for pox virus. And we are all safe from pox. Of course, now pox has been eradicated. We take polio. Many of us take polio and we are safe from polio. Why? Because when we take polio, the human system also recognizes the polio and memory is very high. Immune memory is very high. BCG does not give us enough immune memory. So some of us are trying to find out, can we improve the immune memory by giving something else as an adjuvant, something else as a co-immunogen, and that's where would it be. And we also do not know if BCG will protect HIV plus children. Given this background, there are quite a few TB vaccine candidates which are now under various stages, and many of these are now in development stages. And this is the funders which are given. I would not like you to worry about it. This is the latest story. I will only tell you one ray of hope. That ray of hope which has come from India. This is the bacterium which was known as Mycobacterium W. This was the bacterium that was discovered by Pran Talwar, the former professor of biochemistry at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He was the founder director of National Institute of Immunology. He discovered some soil bacterium which he named it randomly as A, B, C, D, E, X, Y, Z. One of the W strain was tested against leprosy in animal trial. In animal studies, it found that the bacterium that causes leprosy, which is also a member of the TB group family, is very closely related to Mycobacterium W. And that was a time about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the government of India decided that why don't we use this bacterium for treating leprosy. And fortunately, the drug regimes then was much more relaxed compared to today. Today, if I have to rediscover penicillin, rediscover aspirin, all we know it's a very safe drug. It will take me at least 20 years to rediscover aspirin, to clear the regulations, knowing fully well that aspirin can be taken without any problem. But the regimes are so tough, so difficult. But that time it was not so tough. And it took about 15 years to bring out the trial. And finally, if today leprosy is on the decline in India, the cases are much less today. The credit for that goes to G.P. Talwar for having discovered this bacterium, Mycobacterium W. At that time, there were some results which were uncoded after the trials were open, which showed that those people who were given MW as a placebo, just MW, no nothing else, to find out what the effect of MW is on the body. When they were living in the same population, 5 years later, they were found that I'm living in the same household. I got MW as a placebo. He did not get MW at all. He got distilled water. He got subsequently infected with TB. I didn't get infected with TB. Why? And that was the first indication to suggest that maybe MW can also be used against tuberculosis. That was the first indication. And after that, the government of India decided to start clinical trial for TB. At 5 different centers in India, trials were started for using MW as a TB vaccine. Results are being uncoded, and I have been privy to this, and I can tell you we may have a hope for TB vaccine coming from our own country, India. This vaccine is nothing but a heat-killed population of suspension of Mycobacterium W. And when we were asked, we suggested to DBT that why don't we sequence this genome? It's an Indian genome, completely discovered in India, biochemically characterized, immunologically characterized. We want to sequence it completely. DBT said, yes, please go ahead and do it. I was asked to sequence it. We had a team. We sequenced it, and we thought we must name this as not as W, because W is a name given to the Beijing strain. There's a lot of confusion. Mycobacterium W, is it a Beijing strain or is it something else? They are 2 different mycobacterium altogether. And decided to name it as Mycobacterium indicus pranae because it's discovered in India. Pranae because Pran Talwar discovered it. And NII because much of the work that was carried out at the National Institute of Immunology where we were working. And that's where this has now become famous in the literature as MIP bacterium. Today, I must tell you with great satisfaction that it has, when we sequence it completely, we have now understood why is it so strong adjuvant effect. And this is something we are publishing separately. But currently, such a strong immunomodulatory properties has been the reason why it is successfully intervened against leprosy. And we do hope that if the results are decoded and we have analyzed the data, and if it does work out, chances are that it does under certain cases, that to an MDR cases, then it would be a wonderful discovery from India. It's a discovery that the nation will be proud of. It is also under evaluation against TB, I told you, and against anal warts. I reviewed the data last week in the ICMR, and I can tell you it's been a wonderful story. You treat with conventional drugs, you treat with drugs plus MIP, it's a great recovery. It can be against psoriasis, against hepatitis, against human papillomaviruses that causes cancer of the cervix. A large population of Indian women are exposed to HPV. And that's where we feel this MIP would be one of those very rare bacterium of huge human importance, of huge clinical importance. I mentioned to you that we have no new biomarkers for treatment, and to determine when we should stop the treatment. And that's where work done in our collaborating laboratory, which we published last year, 2 years ago. Actually, it's been published already. It's appeared in 2012 now. It shows that this antigen, the HRS antigen, level is very high when the patient is first going to the clinic. As he is treated for after 3 months, after 6 months, his levels have come down. Those who were taking for treatment is control. Their levels as going up, which means they are now becoming suspected candidates for TB. And that's where we feel this would be a wonderful new biomarker to detect, to monitor how the patient is responding to TB, and also to find out when is the end point. We should stop treatment here. There's no need to give him continually for another 8 months, 6 months, or even longer. Problem with TB is, these are the last few slides of mine, Syllogism with other co-infections, and also the immunosuppressed condition. The triple trouble, as I call it. We already know that TB HIV is a problem, is a big problem. If you have co-infection with HIV, we have a scenario known as something which is which one to treat first, whether TB or HIV, and there's an immune compromised situation there. But unfortunate problem is, even now, not only TB, HIV is enough, we have diabetes. India is emerging as a major diabetic capital. And I must say a lot of this is being contributed to the emerging when America is filing class action suits against Burger King and McDonald's, India is welcoming Burger Kings and McDonald's, and that is where our habits or eating habits are changing. And diabetic is becoming very rampant in India. HIV, TB, diabetics, they are all immune disorders. They are all related to the inflammatory disorders. And if you have all three put together, that will be more deadly than what we can think of. So what are the respiratory needs? We need to develop new drugs, and most importantly, to develop shorter regimes for treatment. 6 months treatment is too long. And one of the studies that we are doing is to do nutritional intervention. Can we not improve the recovery period and effectiveness by doing nutritional intervention? HIV and TB related issues. We need to do a lot of basic research in drug development. We need to exploit the bioinformatics for more flexible designs for studies, and that's where I would very strongly urge the bioinformatics group at the Central University of Bihar. Whatever we did in this in IIT is nothing but bioinformatics. You can at least make a proposition, make a suggestion. Time will say whether your candidates are good or not, but at least you have candidates to propose for new drugs. We need to interrupt the transmission, and that is equally important. And then also we need to alleviate the social and economic conditions and the health disparities that breed both TB and HIV. Of course, we need to have a new vaccine. So these are some desperate needs. Action is needed in 4 spheres: TB control, care and control. Research must be there, new tools, new operational research, rapid transfer of technology. Health system policies. Government has taken one very major initiative, and that is to declare TB as notifiable disease. Government needs to take another very important decision. Ban on the over-the-counter sale of antibiotics. Let antibiotics be sold purely on prescription. That is a very major need. Nowhere in the world other than the underdeveloped countries, antibiotics are sold over the counter. You just cannot get it without a registered medical practitioner signing under his signature and prescribing you antibiotics. But today, I don't even need a prescription. I can just say, give me ofloxacin and they'll give you. Give me whatever I want, rifampicin, they'll give you without any prescription. So that's another policy decision that government has to take. And regulate the private cares. And of course, bring in return for investment for the companies. People are not investing in drugs against TB at big companies. Why? Because returns are very poor. Who will buy the drug? Patients. Who are these patients? Very poor people. They don't have the buying capacity. HIV, people will buy because they are rich and they're famous. It's more of a healthcare, more of a lifestyle disease than an infectious disease. So people have money, they can buy. If I have blood pressure, I'll continue to use it for the rest of my life. So it's a palliative. If I have TB, I take a drug for 6 months, I don't need it after that. Where is the return? The only return can be if the government assures the drug company that we will be your buyer, and still we have very large numbers, absolute numbers, and we will ensure that your money on investment is returned to you. That is a political decision that the government has to take. Let me conclude by saying we need to be productive to achieve the 2015 targets for reduction in bacterium and to achieve the target of elimination by 2050. We need to do a continuum where research efforts need to be harmonized, and we need to have a continuum in the sense of ensuring that the process goes on to the last stage. TB can be eliminated because we know its cause, transmission, treatment, prevention. TB isn't being eliminated, but it can be eliminated. Why? Because we still need to understand a number of things, and most importantly, we need to provide enough funding. As I told you, globally TB funding is very poor compared to other diseases. In India, things are changing. The DBT itself has invested very heavily on TB, including funding my own group in a big way and that's where I would like to take the last slide by saying thanking my infection biology group and large number of graduate students and postdocs in my lab. It's difficult to name them. Many of them have become faculty members and have become great grandson in terms of students. My PhD student has produced a PhD student. His student has also produced a PhD. So I've become a great grandson in terms of PhD. Sorry, great grandfather. My great grandson are now getting a PhD. Niaz Ahmad was my PhD student. Sharmista Banerjee, again a PhD student. Sangeeta Mukhopadhyay worked with us as a postdoc. They all were together with us when I was at the NII or the CDFD, and they're now my collaborators. I'm very happy to be with your own students who have done very well. Nasreen Ehtisham collaborates with us at the on the TB, both the marker system as well as the other biology system. Shekhar has been working with us on the crystal structure of TB drug candidates, the target molecules. Anil Tyagi and his group worked with us to sequence the Mycobacterium indicus pranae. Dr. Katoch is currently the DG of the ICMR, and he is the secretary of the Government of India Department of Health Research. We still have an active collaboration. He has a lab in Jalma, and we have worked together. We have more than a few dozen papers together with Dr. Katoch. S.K. Sharma continues to work with us. I was working with him very closely when I was at Delhi, and now I'm back to Delhi. I'm again back. He's the head of the Department of Medicine. In fact, he's one of the finest physicians I have seen. Somebody who is so engrossed a physician that he'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and then call up because he sends me SMS at 4 o'clock in the morning. And also routinely he sends me SMS around 11:30, 12, and morning 6 o'clock. So I asked him one day, don't you ever sleep? He's the head of medicine. He'll be the longest professor and head. I think he's already been there for the last 9 years, and another 5 more years he'll be the head. He said, Hasnain Sahab, I suddenly wake up and say, उस patient को मैं treat कर रहा था. Maybe I should change the treatment course, and I called up my SR and asked him to change the treatment course. And he's one of the finest researcher. He publishes in journals like New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of JID, JCI. He was invited recently as one of the 3 people from the world to talk about his latest research that he published in NEJM. And I'm very happy that we have had such wonderful people who have been collaborating with us. Mahavir Hospital was our earlier collaborator. We continue to do in Hyderabad. And Jörg Hacker, who's now the president of the German National Academy, is again one of our collaborators. And recently we have started working with the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology, Madan Babu. This place is very famous. There was a book that was named as a Nobel laureate on every floor. This is the place, Laboratory of Molecular Biology. Originally this was the place where the DNA double helix was discovered. Now it has moved to a hospital. And that's where we need to integrate very closely with clinicians. Gone are the days when we can work in our laboratory. All of my colleagues, if you look at them, many of them are active clinicians. We work very intensely together with clinicians. And I had been very fortunate to get a large number of support, Center of Excellence in TB from the DBT, ICMR support. The DST gave me a JC Bose fellowship that allows me to good amount of additional salary on top of whatever I get. And of course, the Robert Koch Institute, where I go and spend time. I'm going to be another 1 month. I'll be spending time in Robert Koch Institute. They have been very generous in appointing me as a Robert Koch Fellow for life. Thank you so much for your time. Can take my slide off.
Question answer.
I'll leave it to you if there is a convention or question.
Yeah. Now session is open for few questions. So you can ask if you have any doubt, anything in your mind, you can ask questions, please. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
आपकी दाढ़ी को क्या हो गया? आपकी पहले बड़ी लंबी दाढ़ी हुआ करती थी.
Yeah, please use the mic.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have 2 questions. One is that, as you said, P and PP family of protein is a very unique family of protein associated with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And also you said that ancestral isolates and Beijing isolates are very different. Since ancestral isolates are very localized to India, so what are the differences or the similarities of PE and PPE family of protein between these two isolates? And the second question is that, sir, as you said that drug resistance is the very common problem for the tuberculosis treatment, MDR and XDR, as you said. So my question is that what are the reasons which causes this much strongest resistance to this bacterium?
Done?
Yeah, yes.
The first question is also a very good question. So I must answer is very simple. If you look at the H37 RV and RA, RA is A virulent, RV is virulent, right?
Yes.
RA does not have RD1 region. RD1 region has several PEPP family of proteins. So that explains why PEPP family of proteins are important. They have been deleted over a passage of time. This is a lab created variant. And when you look at the ancestral isolate and the modern Beijing isolate, there's a region known as TBD1, TB specific deletion. That is the region which is deleted in the between, if you compare the ancestral with the modern. And that explains why, and that is one of the signatures for looking at whether it's a TBD is present or not present. So these are very specific deletions which have occurred over millions of years between ancestral one and the modern day TB. And that is the reason why you have acquired more of a virulence and pathogenicity. The next question.
Sorry. So that intervene the quorum sensing function of that bacteria?
That I won't be able to say, but we do know that quorum sensing function, at least in this case, is more to do with the PP. It is not the same PP family, but there are PP families which are deleted between the virulent and the modern day TB. The second question that you had was with respect to why it becomes so drug resistance. Drug resistance, as we now know very categorically, is caused because of, I would say, drug insults. When I say drug insults, it means you are, as I said, all of us are now exposed to drug, or exposed to mycobacterium, right? But then we are absolutely healthy. I don't think anybody in this room, if I do a MON2 test, they'll be positive for MON2. It could be a variety of reasons. It could be BCG, it could be exposure to TB. But none of us here in this room are a patient of TB. Now imagine in that scenario, if I take excess drug. Today what happens if I get flu, the doctor also writes to me an antibiotic, a very high class of antibiotic which is supposed to be used as a next antibiotics. Why? Because he doesn't want to lose a patient, because with flu I can also get secondary infection.
Right.
Bacterial infection secondary, to ensure that it is checked, whether I have or not doesn't matter. Doctor has prescribed me an antibiotic. And because one time he prescribed me, next time I don't even need to go to the doctor, I'll buy that medicine on my own. Now what happens to the body? The body sees this antibiotic. The bacterium also gets a flavor of this antibiotic and finds out that this antibiotic is now acting on this gene of my genome. And it's acting on this particular nucleotide sequences are involved. This is not happening overnight, this is happening over a passage of time. And as a consequence, the bacterium, and imagine a scenario when you have already been put under a drug regime. You are taking 4 drugs to treat TB, but you have withdrawn after half the treatment because you think you are absolutely recovered. And this half the treatment, the bacterium is trying to survive, but it cannot survive because of continuous drug pressure on it. It knows where are the changes required to make. When you withdraw the drug, bacterium has already identified and mutated those. And this was a study that we published, that we now know where are the sites where mutations take place. So that is the reason why many of these, and this will be obviously much more to do with the most virulent, more rampant bacterium than to do with the ancestral isolates. So MDR, XDR and TDR are more in numbers with Beijing strain than with the Indian ancestral isolates. Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me. You please first. Yeah.
Welcome you, sir, in Patna. I'm Dr. Dilip, and I'm MBBS and Master of Public Health from Sri Chitra Institute, Trivandrum. My question to you is, as you shown in the graph, since beginning, means last 7 decades or 8, globally, the funding of the TB, this disease, that is reducing, or you can say stagnant, even though we all know that this is the poor man's disease and it is affecting the economically productive group. Why such policy change occurred and where we lost the track? Why maternal child health or anything came first and the disease affecting the economically productive group, not only the TB, even the Kala-Jar, malaria, that is coming the last. Why? Where we lost the track?
Good question. I don't know if I can give you an answer. All I can tell you is that perhaps we have never been able to understand the gravity of the situation. It took us 60 years after independence to declare TB a notifiable disease, where one of our very important and very respected Prime Minister was a patient of TB. Of course, nobody here knows who that Prime Minister I'm talking about. When some of the most eminent leaders of the world have been TB patients. Because it was considered as a stigma. So the cases were unreported. So only now, because we know that somebody is dying of TB every 15-20 seconds somewhere in the world, and India becoming a hotspot, the government is reacting to it. I think government has to react much more aggressively now. It has to, first thing it has to do is to ban the OTC sale of antibiotics. It has to do many other things that I mentioned in my slide. So historically it has been a poor man's disease, and like many other poor man's problems, those are addressed more during election time. Unfortunately, TB doesn't have any periodic outburst. It is a continuing outburst. I wish TB had also been every 5 years comes out during election, then TB also would have been very effectively dealt with. But that's not the case.
Yeah. Sir, myself Dr. Antarish Kumar, Faculty of Central University of Bihar. So my question to you is that although we have had lots of information regarding this Mycobacterium tuberculosis, we have a sequence, we know the number of proteins which involve in the infection or involve in the... So my question, although we have a different or ample information of this TB, but still there is a gap or there is a major obstacle to generate, either predict the mycobacterium in the initial stage, or we are not able to design a diagnostic tool to check whether the disease has a particular person or not.
Yeah. Good question. Let me also go back to another decision that the government of India has taken, and that is to do with the fact that TB diagnosis until about a year ago was allowed to be done by enzyme-based assays, ELISAs. Now that's been banned. And I think it's a good decision to ban it. Because multinational companies developed kits which are based on TB profile of patients coming from other parts of the country, which are very different. Our own studies have shown that our TB bacterium is very different from the other TB bacterium. Now, because of that, we had large number of false cases. They were making money. All the multinationals were making money, but without delivering the real diagnostics. The problem with TB is diagnostics, a lot of people are working. Now we have to work only on nucleic acid based diagnostics, because protein based diagnostics is banned for right reasons. I would say maybe we had overreacted, but nonetheless, having banned it, perhaps I would agree that the decision was required. To develop a diagnostics, you need both investment. As I said, multinational big companies will not be interested in TB at all. It's only the Indian company. And much of the new diagnostics in India that are currently under trial or hopefully will reach the public, they're all developed by, I would say, tier 2, tier 3 pharma companies. They're not the top pharma companies. Because even if you diagnose TB, who do you diagnose? Poor people who will not be able to buy it. Unless the government comes forward and say, we will underwrite all your expenditure, which means there has to be very heavy investment in this. HIV, both diagnosis and drug development went logarithmically. Why? Because they're not worried about the government. They know there are enough rich people in the world who would buy my diagnostics, who will buy my Western blot, who will buy my treatment. Antiretrovirals. They become a blockbuster. billion-dollar sale. Government will not have $1 billion, although there are 1 billion people who are infected with TB. Government will not worry about it, because it's again a lot to do with the economics of who the returns are, where the returns are going to be, and all these. It's a very not very easy answer to this. It's a very complex answer to this.
I think we don't have much time, and you can discuss these things after the seminar, because I think the
last question of you. जी
इस पे कुछ रोशनी डाली
जी। उसके लिए फॉर्चुनेटली हमारे मुल्क में, हमारे हिंदुस्तान में गवर्नमेंट ने बड़ी अच्छी जो स्कीम चलाई है, RNTCP प्लस प्रोग्राम। आई कैन एश्योर यू, मैं आपको यकीन के साथ बता सकता हूँ कि RNTC हमारी सक्सेस स्टोरी है, और RNTCP गरीब अमीर को नहीं देखती है। ये दूसरी बात है कि ज़्यादातर वहाँ गरीब ही लोग जाते हैं, क्योंकि अगर आप RNTCP में जाएंगे तो लोग कहेंगे अच्छा आपको टीबी। अब आज के दिन में भी टीबी बताने में लोग हिचकिचाते हैं कि मुझे टीबी है। कोई ज़रूरत नहीं हिचकिचाने की। आप आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड HIV में हिचकिचाहट हो, चूँकि लाइफस्टाइल डिजीज़ है, लोग समझेंगे आप होमोसेक्सुअल हैं या आप प्रोस्टिट्यूट से काफ़ी इंटरेक्ट करते हैं। टीबी तो उसमें कोई उस तरह की शक आप पर नहीं होगा। लेकिन अभी भी लोग, बिकॉज दे फील देयर इज अ मिसकंसेप्शन दैट टीबी इज़ ऑल्सो जेनेटिक। अगर हमारे ख़ानदान में किसी को टीबी हो गया तो लोग कहेंगे इनके ख़ानदान में तो टीबी है लोगों को। इसलिए थोड़ी सी जो हमारे मुल्क में इस बात की जो हमारे सिस्टम है, उसकी वजह से लोग प्रोग्राम में जाना नहीं चाहते हैं। लेकिन अगर गरीब टीबी है, डायग्नोज हो गया है, तो RNTCP प्रोग्राम में उसका 100% उम्मीद है कि वो क्योर हो जाएगा। इसलिए उसके लिए कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। सवाल ये है कि समाज में कैसे बदल लाया जाए। थैंक यू।
I think one more time we must thank to Dr. Seyed Hasnain for such a look. Just to sum up, the take-home message is now, in India, TB is a notifiable disease. We must remember that whosoever has a disease, he must go to the center where we have the TB diagnostic, like dot centers, we have the RNTCP, we have the microscopy. And to tell you the truth, that our center, Rajan Memorial Institute of Medical Sciences, has the only center in Bihar who has the MDR and XDR diagnostic center. So anybody has a MDR or XDR, he must come to our center. Then the second thing what Dr. Hasnain has said very important is, now we have the virulent protein we have identified, that is PE and PPE. So the future is very great. Like if we can target that, we may have something to go for the good future. Then we have also seen that this TH1 and TH2 bias. Then TH1, somehow if we can increase, like in Leishmania, what we work, the Leishmania and the TB has the synergistic. What I have seen with him, that Leishmania also TH1 has gone down during the disease and TH2 has up. So somehow we have to see that if TH1 comes up, the disease will be gone down. Then we have also seen that we have MW, which has a great future for the TB, because using the MW, there are 5 centers which were involved, and according to him, the results are very encouraging. Along with that, we have also seen the drug plus MW. It has another future for our future research, and also great future for the TB to be eradicated or eliminated from India. Then we have now some biomarker, means readout. Earlier we don't have the readout. Now we have the readout, how we have to see, where we have to see. So we have now biomarker, what Dr. Hasnain has said. Then the question is, again, is the synergism between TB, HIV, and diabetes. It is an enigma. We have to solve this enigma. We have to think that if we have this situation, where we will go. And we have to think for new drugs, and we have to think for new social events to stop that. Then what are the needs? What he discussed is shorter duration of the drugs which we can use, then the compliance will be good. Because if it is 6 to 9 months, sometimes after 6 months you see that I'm okay, my everything has come back, then you stop taking, but then the relapses are there. Then nutritional intervention, then that is also one of the aspects we have to look for, what he has said. Then bioinformatics, it's a very important thing, and I think Dr. Janak Pandey is here, and I think he will definitely highlight or definitely think about the future of bioinformatics in CUB, because we have also started bioinformatics center in our institute, and we can collaborate in this particular line. We got many good people from Odisha. There are 2 good people, they have joined to our institute, and we can have hand to hand together and see that if we can make something. Then we have to also think about the interruption of the transmission, so that disease should not be spread by any means. And lastly, we need antibiotics to be sold by prescription, not by the self. Means it has to be definitely by the people who go to the self. He has to show the prescription, and then the seller should give him. With this few words, I once again think that this was a wonderful seminar. We had this type of seminars about 1 month and a half before, when he was in our institute, and I think every day, every seminar, his again and again enlightened me. What I know today, maybe tomorrow I don't know. I think I have not known so many things. So with this few words, I must thank Dr. Seyed Hasnain for coming over here and giving this talk. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor Pradeep Das. It's my duty now to thank those who are involved in this lecture series 2013 and 14. As Professor Hasnain delivered today a wonderful lecture and thought-provoking for all the clinicians and researchers and faculties here, we will look forward to work together. And I see there are many scientists, clinicians came here. We invite, on behalf of Central University of Bihar, please come together, collaborate with us. We'll do better science here, and we will fulfill the need of India in the healthcare, definitely. And we will look forward for all of you, as a clinician, as a researcher, as a scientist. Please join us. Please come together. Let me introduce my department or center where we work in Central University of Bihar. We have 2 centers and 1 school. One of the centers is Center for Biological Sciences. In this biological science group, we have 3 programs running right now: life science program, biotechnology program, and bioinformatics program. We have very diverse faculty, all graduated from very good institute, have wonderful exposure from outside India and in India. So I must invite you to please visit us, CUB, and please join hand with us. We must thank Professor Hasnain for his visit here from his busy schedule. He extracted some time for us. Sir, we are very thankful to you for your precious time. We also thank Dr. Pradeep Das for being with us, sharing the session. We are honored with your presence, sirs. We are also thankful to our leadership, Professor Janak Pandey and Professor Muhammad Nihal, for his continuous guidance and working hard day and night to build this institution, taking this flock of faculty together to build a new institution and work together in this state of Bihar. We are also thankful Dr. K.K. Prasad, Director Health Services, State TB Officer, Bihar, who came here. We have with us many names that I'm not going to announce, but we have dignitaries like Professor Alauddin Ahmed Sahib here, Professor Hai Sahib here, many professors are here. Professor Chandravati ji is here with us from AN College. We are very thankful for all the guests, and we would like to thank you also, media people who are coming here in large number. We are also thankful to N. Sinha Institute of Social Studies by providing this seminar conference room. We are also thankful to all our students, faculties, staffs for being with us and organizing such a wonderful lecture series. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. We hope to meet together sometime in future also. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
The final moments, we are here to felicitate Professor Hasnain by offering him a shawl by our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Janak Pandey. Thank you very much.
वही जाएंगे बताएंगे